The clandestine government facility buzzed with a low, constant hum of machinery and whispered conversations. Deep within its labyrinthine corridors, Dr. Miriam Caldwell worked tirelessly on the cutting-edge quantum energy project. Her sharp eyes, framed by wisps of auburn hair, scanned the readouts on a holographic display, each line of data bringing her closer to a breakthrough. As she delved deeper into her research, Miriam couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. The equations, though seemingly perfect, hinted at a power far beyond human comprehension. She shared her concerns with Dr. Henry Whitmore, a fellow scientist and longtime friend. "Henry, there's something in these calculations that feels off, like we're tapping into something we shouldn't be." Dr. Whitmore, a tall man with a stoic demeanor, adjusted his glasses and peered at the screen. "Miriam, I understand your concerns, but we must trust the data. This project could revolutionize our understanding of the universe." Despite his reassurances, Miriam's unease grew, a gnawing sensation that something was lurking just beyond the veil of their reality. Meanwhile, Captain Eleanor Ross, the facility's head of security, noticed unusual activity on the surveillance monitors. Shadows flickered where there should be none, and strange, unidentifiable noises echoed through the empty hallways at night. Ross, a seasoned veteran with a no-nonsense attitude, approached Agent Samuel Blake, a government liaison with a penchant for uncovering secrets. "Blake, something's not right here. I need your help to get to the bottom of this." Together they began to investigate, uncovering a series of anomalies linked to the quantum energy project. As they delved deeper, they stumbled upon classified documents detailing the project's true aim: to harness quantum energy to open portals to other dimensions. The potential for untold power and knowledge was immense, but so were the risks. Blake turned to Ross, his voice tinged with apprehension. "We need to stop this before it's too late." As Dr. Miriam Caldwell and Dr. Henry Whitmore pushed the boundaries of their research, they unknowingly drew the attention of beings from beyond our reality. The first sign of their presence was a sudden, unexplainable spike in energy readings. The once stable quantum field began to fluctuate wildly, emitting pulses that caused the air to crackle with unseen electricity. Miriam's unease transformed into a gnawing fear. She approached Whitmore with the latest data, her voice trembling slightly. "Henry, these fluctuations are not random. They're responses to something that's trying to break through." Whitmore's face paled as he studied the readings, the gravity of the situation dawning on him. Meanwhile, Captain Elena Ross and Agent Samuel Blake's investigation led them to a secured sub-basement of the facility. The area was filled with equipment designed to contain and monitor the quantum experiments. Ross scanned the room, her sharp eyes catching the slightest movements. "This place is a fortress. What exactly are we dealing with here, Blake?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Blake, holding a flashlight that flickered with every step, replied, "According to these files, they're experimenting with opening portals to other dimensions. But something's gone wrong. We need to shut this down before it's too late." As they moved deeper into the sub-basement, the air grew colder, and an oppressive sense of dread settled over them. Back in the lab, Miriam and Whitmore worked frantically to stabilize the quantum field, but their efforts were in vain. With a blinding flash and a deafening roar, the first rift tore open. From the gaping wound in reality emerged monstrous creatures, their forms twisted and incomprehensible. The lab was thrown into chaos as alarms blared and the facility's emergency protocols activated. Miriam stood frozen, watching in horror as the creatures began to move through the lab, their intentions unknown but clearly malevolent. Chaos erupted in the facility as the monstrous creatures spread, their presence warping reality itself. Dr. Miriam Caldwell and Dr. Henry Whitmore scrambled to devise a plan to contain the rift and halt the invasion. The creatures, with their twisted forms and otherworldly appearance, moved with eerie grace, their intentions as inscrutable as their origin. In the control room, Captain Elena Ross and Agent Samuel Blake monitored the escalating situation. Ross's jaw tightened as she watched the security feeds. "We need to contain this now," she said, her voice steely. Blake nodded, his expression grim. "I'll coordinate with the security teams. We need to isolate the lab and prevent any more breaches." As the security teams moved into position, Miriam and Whitmore worked frantically to reverse the damage. They theorized that by reversing the quantum field's polarity, they might be able to seal the rift. However, the process was fraught with danger. "We don't have a choice," Miriam said, her voice resolute. "If we don't act now, it will be the end for all of us." With the facility on high alert, Captain Ross and her team engaged the creatures, using advanced weaponry designed for the facility's unique threats. The creatures fought back with unnatural strength, their movements a nightmarish blend of speed and fluidity. Ross barked orders, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Focus fire, we need to push them back to the rift." As the battle raged, Miriam and Whitmore prepared the equipment needed to reverse the quantum field. The lab was a scene of destruction, with equipment sparking and debris scattered everywhere. Despite the chaos, they remained focused, driven by the need to save their world from these interdimensional horrors. As Miriam initiated the sequence, she could only hope their desperate plan would succeed. Dr. Miriam Caldwell and Dr. Henry Whitmore worked with a renewed sense of urgency. The quantum equipment buzzed and sparked around them, the very fabric of reality seeming to strain under the pressure. Whitmore's hands moved with precision, adjusting the settings to reverse the field's polarity, while Miriam kept a watchful eye on the data, her heart pounding in her chest. Outside the lab, Captain Elena Ross and her team continued their desperate battle against the monstrous creatures. Ross's orders cut through the chaos as she directed her team with unyielding resolve. The creatures, despite their otherworldly strength, were gradually being pushed back toward the rift. "We need to hold the line," Ross shouted, her voice a beacon of strength amidst the turmoil. Inside the lab, the moment of truth arrived. Whitmore initiated the final sequence, and the room was bathed in a blinding light as the quantum field began to reverse. The air vibrated with an otherworldly hum, and the rift started to shrink, pulling the monstrous creatures back into the void. Miriam and Whitmore held their breath, praying that their calculations were correct. As the rift closed, the creatures let out unearthly screams, their forms dissolving into the collapsing portal. The facility trembled as if resisting the change, but slowly, the chaos began to subside. Miriam collapsed into a chair, her body shaking from the adrenaline and relief. Whitmore placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder, his expression one of exhausted triumph. "We did it, Miriam. We actually did it." Captain Ross and her team regrouped, their faces marked with exhaustion and relief. The facility's alarms quieted, and the eerie silence that followed was almost as unsettling as the chaos had been. Ross made her way to the lab, finding Miriam and Whitmore amidst the wreckage. "It's over," Ross said, her voice a mixture of weariness and gratitude. "You two saved us all." Miriam managed a weak smile, her mind already racing with the implications of what they had just witnessed. The battle was won, but the war against the unknown had only just begun. The aftermath of the quantum breach left the facility in a state of disarray. Cleanup crews worked tirelessly to restore order, but the scars of the battle were evident everywhere. Dr. Miriam Caldwell walked through the wreckage, her mind heavy with the weight of what had transpired. The creatures were gone, but the knowledge of their existence haunted her. Dr. Henry Whitmore joined Miriam, his usually composed demeanor showing signs of weariness. "We managed to close the rift, but the data suggests that similar events could occur if we're not careful. Our understanding of quantum energy is still in its infancy," he remarked. Miriam nodded, her thoughts echoing his concerns. They had won the battle, but the war against the unknown was far from over. In a debriefing room, Captain Elena Ross, Agent Samuel Blake, and the remaining members of the security team reviewed the events. Ross's face was stern, but her eyes betrayed the toll the ordeal had taken. "We need better protocols and more advanced defenses. If this happens again, we have to be ready," she asserted. Blake agreed, adding, "We also need to ensure that our research doesn't endanger us or anyone else." As the days passed, the facility slowly returned to a semblance of normalcy. Yet for Miriam, Whitmore, and the others who had faced the creatures, life would never be the same. Miriam spent hours poring over the data, seeking any clue that might help them prevent another breach. The experience had changed her, deepening her resolve to understand the mysteries of the quantum world while safeguarding humanity from its potential horrors. In a private moment, Miriam stood at the edge of the now-sealed rift site, a place that had once been the epicenter of chaos. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath, steeling herself for the challenges ahead. The path to understanding quantum energy was fraught with danger, but it was a journey she was determined to undertake. For in the vast unknown, both terror and wonder awaited, and it was her duty to navigate this treacherous frontier